Just to quickly revise it, for standard list controller, you need to define a standard controller. Then you define a record set where, and then we basically create a page block table. For page block table, you define the value and variable. So these are the attributes which we use, and after that we use the column component, correct, to display the column. Now, post that we started working on a scenario where we wanted to make one of the column as input field, read write kind of a column, right? So for that, what we have done, input field component we have already seen. Create a column component, start the column, end the column, and within that column component we have put the input field component. That's what we have done, correct? So if you want to bring in another component, if you want in a column some specific type of data to come in, and you need to use some component for that, you have to insert that component inside the column components. So in that case, you'll have to start, close the column component, and put the other component inside it, the way we have done it here. Now the moment you do this, what happens? Your header is gone. Do you notice this? When you use a value attribute on a column component, by default the field name or the field label basically appears as the header of the column. But now, since I've not used in this line number 9, in this column, I've not used a value attribute. Value attribute I'm using inside the input field. So this default header which was coming, it's not appearing right now. So if that does not appear by default, the header, you can also put a custom header there. So there is something called header value. You can write header value and you can put the header value. So you see this? So your custom header value has been set here. Alright. So this is how you can actually work with it. Now, coming back to the input field component that we have used here. So if I have made it input field component, now if I make any changes here, let's say if I change it like this. So if I make any changes here, is it gonna get saved automatically in the database? No. Again, the same concept which we did earlier for the form for a standard controller. When you create an input field, you make the changes on the field. The field changes are made on the interface. We have to save it in the database also, correct? So now how do we save it in the database? To save this in the database, all that we have to do is we have to go to the code and we have to create a save button. So same way, the way you did it. So here you can create a save button at the end, and that save button can actually save all the changes in all the records. Got it? So that save button can be used for saving all the changes. Okay. Now the only thing that I don't like about this page is the way it is appearing. the way this phone field is appearing, it is appearing like an input field, right? Sometimes you might want the data to be displayed like a read-only field, like this one, but still the end user should have an option of editing it, right? So sometimes what you want is, you don't want the data to be displayed in this format, you want the data to be displayed in read-only format like this one, but the end user still should have an option to edit the data. How is that possible? How will that be done? Hello. So to get that thing where the data gets displayed in a read-only format but it is still editable, we have to use another component which is called inline edit. Right. We have to use another component which is called inline edit. What is this inline edit component? Inline edit component basically allows you to display the data in read-only format, and the user will be able to double click on the record to edit the record. So where do you include the inline edit and how do you do that? So I'm removing this input field right now. You just comment it out. So we have removed that input field component for now. Now I'll use the inline edit. One option we have seen that you can, if you want to make the data editable, uh, one easy option that you have is you just go ahead and change the field type into input field. Okay. Use the input field component and it will display the data as in form of input fields. That's option number one. Option number two is this. You use an inline edit component. Where will you put the inline edit component? You can put it inside the table. Just before terminating the table component, you just call fx inline edit support. That's it. You just have to call this component and click on save. Okay. Now, what has actually changed on this page? It looks still the same, right? But since you have used the inline edit support component, you will be able to double click on a certain record and edit it. Serious? Whichever field you want to edit, you just have to go and double click on that field. Okay, so the entire page is not editable. It looks like read only, but you have the option of double clicking on a certain record. So this gives you a better look actually. Because inline edit support actually gives you a better look and feel as compared to the making the entire table as input field, because that was not looking very nice. Now what happens here, the data looks proper in a read-only format, and you also have the option of editing it. Alright, so this inline edit support is a good thing to use in case you want a table to be editable or something like that. Oh. Uh, so what we have done here, we have put inline edit support inside this page block component, correct? As a result, this entire page block table, sorry, we have put it inside the page block table component. As a result, this entire block of code, okay, all the lines inside this page block table component have been covered by inline edit support. That's what has happened, right? So if you put an inline edit support inside a certain component, what does it do? It enables the inline edit support for all other components inside the same parent. So that's how it has worked. So it has enabled inline edit support for all the columns inside this. Okay. Now the problem is that I don't want it for all the fields. There can be a situation where you just want it for, let's say, the phone field only. You don't want all the fields to be editable. Then what do we do? This is where inline edit support got enabled for all the fields. Now I just want it for one field. Then what will I do? Okay, so let's do that thing. For that we are going to create a different page. Okay, I'll create one more page. This time we are going to create it for opportunity. Record set where text page block title ops page block table value Okay. So in this case, I just want to use an inline edit support for one field. I have so many fields. I just want to use it, let's say, for the amount field. Okay. So how are we gonna do that? If you put the inline edit support component somewhere in the page block table, if you put it here, then all the fields will get affected. That's what we understood from the last example. I need it only for apex column. Any ideas what exactly we have to do? Anyone? If I put it inside this, then it's going to affect all other columns also. If I need it only for this column, then what do I need to do? Just think about the last two examples that we did. Okay, let's see. All that you need to do is you have to put the inline edit inside the column instead of putting it in the column, because if I put it in the column, it's going to affect all the fields. So instead of putting it inside the column, instead of putting it in the table, I'll have to put it in the column, restrict it within the column. How will you do that? First of all, start the column component. The column component. In the column, you will use another component called output field, because you have to display data also. The same way as we did the input field component, I'm just using the output field component. Okay, sorry. Inline edit support we have not yet used. And this should be form component here. Do you see this? Now I have made it an input field component. Inline edit in the output field component. Okay, so output field gives you that read-only look, and inline edit support enables you to double-click and edit this. But if you try to do it for the other field, close date, let's say, or stage name, you're not able to do this. Why? Because inline edit support is only enabled for this column. So sometimes you may have that requirement that you want that edit support to be available only for a certain column, then you have to do it this way. put a column, inside the column put an output field, inside the output field put the inline edit support. Alright, so this part of the code is what we have changed from the previous one, this much. That's it. So the column component, inside the column component we have the output field, and inside that I have the inline edit support. That's it. Right. Let me know if anyone has a question or doubt here so far. Anyone, any queries? Please let me know.
Wait, I'm not very clear about what does the output field do?
Output field shows you the data in a read-only format. The way it is showing it. It shows you the data in a read-only format.
Mm.
Input field shows you the data with that input kind of with that input text box, right? This shows the data in form of an as a read-only data only. That's it. That is the
So
difference.
why couldn't we do the inline edit for the column value? Why can't we do that?
To certain wise, right? So, if there is a syntax that they have defined, and if they have made certain components compatible with the other component, it will work that way, right? So, like a column is usually where which is defined for creating that space, or the block of area in the table, correct? So it is not usually meant for holding data and all that stuff. Output field is meant for holding data. So when it is an output field, it's it will always hold data. So they made it compatible with the output field. So it's not compatible with the column component. Like if whenever you are using something like an input field or a button, you always have to use a form component. So that's something that I have written. I mean, there might not be answer to these whys. So that's how it is. It works with output field, the inline edit support. It works inside your page block table, but in that case, it is gonna affect all the fields, all the columns. Now, if you want to put it on a particular column, then first of all, you'll have to go inside the column. So if you're going inside the column, then you either have to use an input field or output field here. Input field does not make sense to use inline edit with an input field because that is already editable. Input field, is there any use of using inline edit support with an input field? No, because that's already editable. Looks editable, so there is no need to double click also. So for that reason, inline edit support is compatible or works with output field. Fine.
Okay. In page 9, where you said that we need a save button, so I tried doing that yesterday, and while I put it within the email section, the email tags,
Mm-hmm.
I got the save button alongside each of the emails.
Yeah,
And if I
right.
put it outside, then it just does not appear.
If you put it outside, then it does not appear.
Yeah, I just couldn't find it. It's
No,
nowhere
you
on
just
the
have
page.
to see where you are putting it. So, if you want to keep it outside the table, then you have to bring it outside the. Sorry, if you want to create one single save button, then you'll have to keep it outside the page block table also. Bring it outside the table. You cannot put it inside the table. If you want to put anything inside the table, which needs to appear, which should be visible, that should be put with the help of a column, right? So if you want a single save button, then put it like this. It's, just come out of the page block table. Here also I can do it. Command button value button. Save it. just come outside the table, right? Because in table you should be having things in columns. So see, everything is here. There's no problem there,
Okay.
right? Okay. Now, I am on the opportunity standard controller page, and second. Okay, so we are on the opportunity standard controller page, and as we discussed that we do not have too much of an option available here to put the criteria, what data I want to see and all that stuff. By default, a standard list controller page by default shows you 20 records on a page. Now, if you count it, these are 20 records. Okay, if you count it now, you will find that these are 20 records. Now, if we can see 20 records here on this page, then how do we see the other set of records? I think if you see, it starts from A and it goes till P, which means there might be some more records which are not visible here. Okay. How do you get access to those records? How do you see those records? Because a standard list controller is going to show you 20 records on a page. Okay. So for that, you have an option of doing pagination. So what does a pagination do? Pagination will basically allow you to uh, create buttons to go to the next and the previous page. So for standard list controller, there are few actions which you can use. One is next, one is previous, one is first, and one is last. So these four actions can be used with a standard list controller page. Okay. Next is an action which will take you to the next page. Previous will take you to the previous page. First will take you to the first page. Last will take you to the last page. Okay. So if you have, let's say, 10 pages, clicking on first will take you to the first of all the 10 pages. If you have 10 pages, clicking on last will take you to the 10th page. Okay. So that's all it is. Now, so these are all going to be buttons or links, command buttons or links. Let me go ahead and create fix command button value next action next. Okay, and more button for previous action is going to be previous. Okay, so the next and previous, right? Now click on the next button. It shows you the next set of records. There are no more records actually. Click on previous, it will take you to the previous set of records. Alright, so while you're working with a standard list controller, pagination is also very simple. All that you have to do is, by default, the functionality is there, standard functionality, use it, and you can you know, use it. The same way you can create two more buttons, first and last. Okay. So now we have these four buttons. They will be used for navigation, for navigating to first page, the last page. Click on the last page, it will take you to the last page. Click on the first page, it's going to take you to the first page, right? And the command link works exactly the way command button works. The only difference is command link looks like a link and a command button looks like a button. Fine. So that's how we will work with the pagination here. Clear on this? Just give me one quick moment. Let me connect to the charger. Okay. So I think that's the question that Venkat also has asked. All right. So what she's asking is, in case instead of 20, I just want to display 10 records on a page. Okay. Then what do I do? So in that case, all that you need to do is you just need to go to page block table. Now, how many records will be shown? The number of rows which are going to be shown is going to be an attribute of the page block table. Right. So you can go to the page block table, and here there is something called a rows. There's an attribute called rows. In rows you can put 10. Save it. Okay. Now go to the last page. Go to the previous page. Next page. Okay. Number of rows we have restricted, but do you notice one thing? That okay, there's a small, keep it 20 or 10. Make it 20 or 10. Let's say you are displaying 20 records, right? So you get to see all these records. And when you get to go to the next page, the 21st record is United Oil, yeah, oil emergency generators. This is your 21st record. When you make the number of records to 10, Okay. Then you have made the number of records to 10. Now you go to next page. Still your next page record is the 21st record. United All Emergency Generator. It should be showing you ideally the 11th record, but it shows 21st record again. Do you know why does it show it like this? Any ideas? Why is it showing taking it to the 21st record again?
By default, it's taking 20 records, and we are only displaying 10 out of that 20.
Yes. So what we have to understand here is, see again, this is a standard controller. Which record it will show on click of the button. I just want you to understand the logic here. It will help you in a lot of other situations also. See what is happening. What this button is doing, this part of code is written where? In the controller. Behavior of this button is being controlled from where? What will a next button do? What will a previous button do? That's a part of the program. Correct? That's the story which is written in the backend. Now, when you go and make a change in an attribute, when you change this, what are you changing? You are actually changing the UI. Do you think it will have any impact on the code which is written for this thing, for this button? Got it? So this, if you want to display the next 10 records, that is something which needs to be written in the code, in the controller code, right? What is going to be displayed when someone clicks on the next record? That's something which needs to be controlled in the controller. That logic, that program, that set of instructions should be written in the controller. Correct? Whereas for us in this case, the controller is a standard controller, which means by default they have defined that okay, on the first page you should display 20 records. So by their controller logic, the records are broken into 20 records. Okay. Clear on it? You want to display lesser records on your table, that can be done, but that's not gonna make any change in the way your standard list controller next button or previous button is gonna behave. So for that it's gonna be 20 records. Correct. If you need that, I want to do a pagination of 10 records per page, again the answer is custom controller, not the standard one. All right. Okay. Now there is one more thing, one more component which we are going to use, which is called a page block button. Okay. As you see, these buttons are here. All these buttons are appearing here. If you want, you can put these buttons in another component called a page block button. Page block buttons. Okay. So I have created these page block buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Page block buttons are ready. Sorry, the page block button is ready, and inside that I have these 4 command buttons. Right? Now let's see what does it do. What difference we see on the page. We have seen the buttons earlier. Now have a look at the buttons. Okay. The buttons will appear once at the top of the page and at the bottom of the page, and they will be automatically centrally aligned. So this page block button is used inside a page block when you want the button to appear at the top of the block as well as at the bottom of the block. This is something which is very common in Salesforce pages. You go to any page, you will see that you will have the buttons at the top and bottom of the block. See, something like this. Edit, delete, clone. So if you want similar kind of buttons, you just have to put your command buttons inside the page block button. Sorry. Okay. Now, in the page block button, you have an attribute called location. So in location, you can say top. So if you say top, it is going to appear only on top. If you say bottom, it's going to appear only on bottom. So that option is also there. If you don't say anything, it's going to appear in both the sides. See? If you say bottom, then it will appear only in the bottom of the page block. And this page block button always has to be a direct child of the page block, which means there should not be any other component between the page block and the page block button. So see, it is a direct child of this. So either this should be put before terminating the page block, or it should be put right after starting the page block. I mean, there should not be another layer of component within these two things. It has to be direct child of the page block. Clear? So that's it. Please let me know if anyone has a question or doubt here.